All right, we're recording. Say hello to YouTube, Twitch chat. Hi guys, this is Tim Kane. Get good. Uh, yeah. This is always a controversial topic, right? Is get good. I know developers that have said this, and I know a lot of players who say this. I don't think it's helpful, but in some cases, I secretly agree. Just get good.
Hi everyone, it's me, Tim.
Hi Tim.
Today let's talk about the phrase, get good. I hate this phrase. Actually, there's a phrase I used to hate more.
Yeah,
called
which one?
Nuff said. People would frequently, on the net, in internet news groups, end a post with Nuff said, as if they had said everything
It's
that was
boomer
possible to say on the topic, and there was no need for a reply.
Yeah, it just shuts down the conversation. There's no nuance to that. And get good is kind of the same thing, where it just shuts down the conversation. End there, get good. None of your complaints are valid. You just need to, skill issue is the now more recent usage of the term get good, which is, again, I sometimes find it funny, but I find it funny when it's specifically used, like Dean Takahashi. You guys know Dean Takahashi, the games journalist. You guys want to see some of Dean Takahashi's gameplay? You would know it. You probably know him. This is Dean Takahashi playing the tutorial of Cuphead. And he's done this multiple times. He did this with Doom and Doom Eternal as well. And they're equally as horrendous. And he writes professional articles for games. So when you want to know when people talk about journalist mode, and they don't trust journalists playing games, and I think this is a fair usage. Maybe you disagree with me, Tim, if you ever watch this. I think this is a fair usage of the term get good. I don't know how you could make this any better except maybe showing like a ghost of the character jumping and dashing if the player can't get past that point too long. But again, if you need that much assistance to get past the tutorial of Cuphead, it's not a game for you. Is he doing this on purpose? I'd love to know. He's also got some Doom Eternal gameplay. What is this gameplay? It's so bad. Reminds me of Asmon filming the tutorial of Balatro. I love that, dude. I wanted to play more of that. It was so painful. So, here's what I'll say. Tim, I agree. I agree we shouldn't use get good or, Nuff said or skill issue. Especially developers probably shouldn't be using these. But I think there are times where sometimes you make a game and the person who's playing it should not be playing the game. Maybe you can maybe there are disagreements we can have there. I don't know. But I agree that it shouldn't be used to shut down every sort of criticism or problem that a player has with the game. Sometimes things can just be poorly designed. Is he playing on mobile? I think he was playing with the controller, to be fair.
It's been exhausted.
I joke around about it.
And then if someone did reply and then they replied, I'd often see people go, I thought you said enough was said. I thought you said you'd said enough. So I think that's why that one went away. But this "get good" phrase. Well, let me talk about it. So I did a video where I mentioned I liked Elder Ring, but I wasn't that big of a fan of Dark Souls, and there were reasons, and people were saying, "Oh my God,
actually.
they're so similar."
No,
and
I agree.
Yeah, but
in the same way,
the very reasons I liked Elder Rings, some of those weren't present in Dark Souls, and sometimes I need all those things together for me to enjoy a game. And when I tell people things, when I was originally trying out Dark Souls and Bloodborne and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, I'm not really into this. They're like, well, just because you need to get good. And often they just go, well, get good. And
to be fair, the Souls community is extremely toxic and gatekeepy. I'm just gonna say it. The Souls community is very toxic, very gatekeepy. It's definitely one of the worst. There is a massive amount of elitism within that community, and yeah, it's not great. They're not super welcoming to new players, especially players who have a problem with like a boss or something. I try not to be too elitist. I think the game is easy, but it's just because that's me. Just get good and people won't say it.
And I heard that phrase a lot, and
but I also didn't like Dark Souls.
It. Sometimes it's not used as a personal attack. They really mean, well, if you were better at the game, you'd probably like it.
And that is true. That is true, by the way. It's something that I think Josh Treface has pointed out before, where players do need to meet developers halfway, and we've talked prior about like general gaming knowledge and how important it is from game to game. If you play a lot of games, there are ways that games work, either within the same genre or they're both first-person games, that you can kind of use prior game knowledge to help you out with that new game, even if you've never played that game before in your life. And there's sometimes people who might jump into Elden Ring who don't really play any of those games before, or haven't really played that many games in general, and they're going to be lacking that basic knowledge of like moving and looking around. My dad is a good example. Played a ton of games, but learning how to use a controller was a massive step up that he had to make. Controlling the character's movement and the camera at the same time. For him, it was, just ingrained that he was a PC gamer, and that took a long time for him to get used to. So, yeah, I think that there is some usage of the term "get good" where it's just like you just need to play the game. You need to get past. You just need to keep practicing. Practice makes perfect. You're not meant to be running around on walls and doing crazy combo moves right at the start of the game. You're meant to learn that. And I think that a lot of gamers aren't willing to go that far. There's different frustration levels, right? So learning curves are, come in every shape and size, and some people want learning curves that are a bit easier. Some are okay with that Path of Exile 1 style learning curve where you need to play 1,000 hours, and even then, you're still not going to know what you're doing. It just depends.
It got turned into one. Get good just would be, people would, on an online PvP match, the winner team would just yell "get good" at the opponents, and they mean it.
It's
they
a
don't
taunt.
mean it as I think you'd enjoy this game better. They mean it as a personal attack.
Yeah.
And I see this everywhere. I've talked about this. When I see people discuss the original Fallout, sometimes I've seen them say, well, look at the character creation is so great because look at all the numbers. And I'm like, Fallout isn't cool because the character creation was a wall of numbers. It's cool because it lets you make your own character, and you can make a lot of different characters, and that helped.
Yeah, it's your avatar, which it's funny he brings up character customization because it's something that when we've looked at Kickstarter games, oftentimes people will say, okay, here's my MMO. That's right. I alone am making an MMO. I need $3 billion. Here's my gameplay, and it's just like 10 minutes of them in some pre-purchased character customization menu, and that's it. And I've seen that so many times. Character customization does not make a game. It is very good for creating your own unique avatar, but it is not the end-all be-all of a game. It is flavor, and it should not be the first thing that you work on in a game. Guaranteed.
Really, the reason making a lot of different characters is such a good thing in that game is because with different characters come different decisions you have to make at character creation and then later.
Yeah, that's true. That's it's an RPG game, so those certain decisions can matter, right? Is which skills do you take? Which ones are your your priority ones. Maybe there are class or race bonuses that you get. Those are important, right? And that's the setup. That's your backstory, your starting point, and then you develop the character from there with your desired build.
Then you have to accept responsibility for those decisions.
True.
Or those actions. You have to accept responsibility for your actions. That's kind of one of the biggest points of Fallout. It's why we have end slides. It's the whole point of, the entire world has been nuked. Guess what? We did that to ourselves. Welcome to Fallout. And it's frustrating that people focus on things like, oh, it had the best character creator, that's why the game was so good. Well, it kind of makes me look at the rest of the game and go, what about all this stuff? And
right.
Yes, when I made Outer Worlds, I wanted to lower that curve. I still wanted it to have the same peak, but I wanted a shallower curve to get there. Because I wanted more people playing, and not just for the sales. Although, you know what? The sales weren't bad. It's nice to occasionally make a game that's not considered niche or...
it matters.
I've just, popular in a very, very narrow band of people.
Yeah, I mean, you can say what you want. You can say, oh, I wish that, indie developers could just make the games that they want and make money from it. But it's just not the reality. You need to make a game that's marketable. And lowering the initial curve to get into that game is an important step. I mean, even Baldur's Gate did it. Baldur's Gate 3 got rid of, and I think it was a pretty good decision actually. What got rid of the racial bonuses, and you could just apply the +2 and the +1 to whatever skills you wanted. So, no, I think it was a good idea for Outer Worlds to lower that curve a little bit and get people into it. It's fine. I think it's good. He's right. It does widen the appeal. But it also just makes that early game a bit more friendly, and making your early game more friendly is very key to success, because people can refund that game within 2 hours. And even people who can't refund the game but end up not liking the game will write a bad review.
But it was nice to have a game like that. And yet, when people would then compare it to Fallout and say, well, I think the reason this isn't as good is because Fallout had more things you could put numbers in. I'm like, I think there's a whole bunch of reasons to like something and not like something. In fact, I have a whole video on bad games where I talk about not every game should be for everyone. But I don't think games should be deliberately exclusionary either. I see people say this game isn't for you, and I see them say it in two very different ways. Sometimes it just means, look, this game isn't for you. I don't think there's an appeal in this game for you. It wasn't really made
when I
for
say it, that's what I
the
mean.
things you like.
Yeah.
If you don't like puzzle games, I could see pointing to a puzzle game and going, this game isn't for you.
Exactly.
But the second one is often as, yeah, this game isn't for you. Why don't you go find a more casual friendly
Why
game?
don't you go play Hello Kitty Island Adventure if you can't handle Elden Ring? Yeah, and that's where the toxicity comes in. I think sometimes, I don't know, no, I agree. I agree with Tim. I agree with what Tim said.
And they really mean it as exclusionary. You're not good enough to be playing this. And by the way, so much misinterpretation of that bad game video. I did not say that you can't think a game is bad. I think games are bad. You can think games are bad. What I did mean by...
No game is objectively bad. And I think that a lot of game designers do try to fall into that elitism camp where they will argue that a game is... certain design decisions are objectively bad or certain games are objectively bad. Clearly, people like the story of Dragon Age Veilguard. Except D format, exactly. Clearly people love it. Some people really, really enjoy it. I did not enjoy the story or the characters of Dragon Age Veilguard. It doesn't mean that it's objectively bad, it just means it wasn't for me. And I didn't, I was looking for something a bit deeper. And I don't think there are bad design decisions either. I think that some design decisions can work for any game. For most games, fixing bugs with clipping characters would be an important thing to help increase the stability and the the general perception of the game's bug fixing, of its stability, of its of how well the artists and programmers could make the game. But if you're making Goat Simulator, You don't want to fix those. That's part of what sells that game. You're making a game that's objectively bad. That's a good start, right? So yeah, I think that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some games are you might think are horrible or not very good. I had a lot of things to say about Baldur's Gate 3. I've had some things to say about Path of Exile 2. But I also, admit to myself that, what, maybe that I love ARPGs. I've played a lot of them. I think what Path of Exile 2 is as an ARPG is not what I'm looking for in an ARPG. So I don't rate the game bad. What don't you like about Path of Exile 2? Okay, I'll sum it up really quickly, not to take up too much time, but I am not a fan of... let me think back. Okay, the difficulty in getting anything useful to drop. And I like to craft, and it didn't feel like I was being given a lot of materials to go deep with crafting like PoE 1. I wasn't a big fan of how a lot of the bosses seem to be roll behind them and then attack and then roll behind them again and then attack. It felt really monotonous. And now this was also before they had you teleporting between the waypoints and map, right? And I felt like the game was very slow paced, and the walkbacks when dying just weren't. Again, it didn't fulfill the power fantasy that I was trying to achieve when I play ARPGs. It really didn't. They've probably fixed some of these things by now, and I will check it out later. Again, that's why I haven't reviewed this game poorly, because it's just like, okay, it's not great for me compared to like PoE 1 or insert many other ARPGs into that group. But I can see how people would like it. I feel like they took Elden Ring and tried to merge it with PoE 1. Prefer PoE 1 a lot more. Me too. Also hate the difficulty balance is off as well in the end game. Yeah, I haven't gotten to maps, so I can't speak about those. But when I was doing the campaign, I couldn't get past Act 2 because the game just felt really slow and unrewarding. Really slow and unrewarding, I think, would be the best ways to put it. And I vastly prefer PoE 1. There are no checkpoints. You get one portal, and if you die, the map's... I don't know. I don't think I'd like that. So, I'm happy people like it, but for me, I love ARPGs, but for me, that isn't the kind of ARPG that I'm looking for.
It, which everybody seems to gloss over, is the part where I said, if you think you thinking a game is bad, equates to that means a game is bad for everyone.
Yeah.
That's wrong. You can hate a game, fine. Other people can like it. That's fine too.
In fact, it's good. It's okay. It is okay. Look, if you guys in chat love PoE 2, I'm happy. I want you to feel nothing but good things from PoE 2, and I want the game to be good. But it's just not for me. And that's fine. That's fine. As long as we can all find games that we love and make us happy and give us the experience that we're looking for, I think that's exactly what gaming should be. But Tim's right. It's not what it often is. It's often, this game is bad, and if you like it, you have shit taste. And you should stop liking it. Like Diablo 4. Here they went for something different. Yeah, I appreciate that they went for something different. But it wasn't what I was hoping for. Much prefer something like PoE 1. Yeah, me too. I don't know. It is what it is. Maybe they'll change it. I think that it's cool that they're trying something new, and maybe it'll stick, or maybe people will prefer, different play styles. I was kind of hoping for me. Again, I really love crafting, and I really love that power fantasy. I like a progression curve that makes me feel stronger. And every time I would go from one map to another in PoE 2, I felt like the one point that I would get from leveling up had such little impact on my character that it didn't feel like I was making any progress at all. And I went back and I was like, is this really the right feeling? So I made a new character in PoE 1 and, didn't use any items from my stash. I made a new character in Last Epoch as well. And both of these games just had much better curves of progression and fulfilled that power fantasy way better than PoE 2 did. So again, it's just like I'm looking for different things that I think these other games fulfill better than PoE 2, which again, yeah, it felt like the Dark Souls of ARPGs, but I guess that's not what I wanted. I don't know. 100% agree, and I see the same problem. Yeah, clearly we're in the minority, right? I think Path of Exile 2 is still doing pretty damn well in terms of ratings, and I am glad because I think that Grinding Gear Games is very, very good. I love what they're doing, and I hope to check it out at some point in the future.
I like it when people are constructive. Like, I didn't like it because of these features. And I wish they talked about the game itself. But too frequently, it just evolves into attacks on the people playing the game or the game developers. That's where I draw my line. That's where I'm like, you guys are getting bad. That's why I don't like Get Good when it turns into a personal attack. I did a video on the Fallout TV show, and there in the comment section there were people, attacking each other for being stupid, for liking it, for hating it, for not noticing something. And it's like, guys,
should we talk about the? Can I? Okay, here I'll ruffle some other feathers. I thought the Fallout TV show was just okay. I had parts that I really liked, aspects that I really liked, and other parts that just didn't. I think that it was a show that was kind of built for superfans, and there was a lot of attention to detail in the sets, but most of the characters were kind of forgettable, and I didn't like that they didn't explain things very well for people who weren't very familiar with the lore. At no point did they explain what the Enclave was, and maybe they're saving that for the second season. But it would have helped contextualize quite a lot of the actions that Ben Linus from Lost, I don't know the character's name, but the Enclave guy was doing. So I thought it was okay. I don't think it was the best adaptation, but it was a good adaptation of Fallout. Just like the Power Armor and Fallout references. I liked the ghoul, whatever his name was. I thought that his character and his makeup was great. I loved when we followed him. I kind of also appreciated that new character feeling, cheesiness of what's her name, the main character. And the others were just kind of like, eh. There were some of the tertiary characters where it would just be like a small scene where the characters themselves, like there was that guy who I think was like looking for water out on his house. He was wearing like the Hawaiian shirt or something. That felt 100% out of Fallout. That guy felt perfect. His character, his story felt perfect. But then others just felt really weird. I don't know.
You can like a TV show or not. It's not.
And yeah, you can like it.
Personal.
My views on it do not affect you.
When I was the video I did on career advice I got from Adam Savage, and people were going on me saying you're a horrible person. Somebody said you're shady AF, and I'm like, it's what? Just so you know, I start to read those and I'm like, unconstructive, next comment. But there were a lot of people, and I like these, and you can tell I liked it because I answered them. Where they actually answered questions. They asked questions. They're like, well, why did you do that? Why didn't you do this? And then we had a conversation, and it went well. But a lot of you don't want to do that. You do not want a conversation. You don't want to figure out anything. You just want to be right, and you want.
Yeah, it's because people admitting that you're wrong is a vulnerability, and admitting that you're vulnerable is a biological disadvantage, right? If you want to go to the good old lobster brains that we have, right? Being vulnerable is a sign of weakness, and it means that you're open for attack. So people want to, just blindly admit and believe that they're right about everything instead of admitting that they might be wrong. Now, I think that, I don't know, I think that's enough said about that. No, I just mean I don't have anything to add. I think that's probably the primary reason for it, is that biological drive to not show weakness.
Everybody else to be wrong. And worse than that, you want everyone else to be stupid or whatever. So I guess what I'm trying to say in all this is feel free to disagree. I think it's great when people disagree. Some of the best stuff that I've done in my games have arisen because people on the team have disagreed. And when we talked it out, we came up with something much better.
Yes, 1,000,000% yes. It's why I will never, ever hire somebody who at any point feels like they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they are anti... What's the word? They're anti-conflict. They avoid conflict. I mean, that too. Ass kissing and sycophants too. Yes, 100% agree. That is also part of it, but also people who avoid conflict. Non-confrontational. Thank you, Lazy Fangs, for being the not English native to correct the English native. Appreciate that. But yes, it's not confrontational. So people who are both ass kissing, the sycophants, the bootlickers, and the non-confrontationals, corpo rat language. Those are horrible things to have in a team. Like your team, your goal, by the way, should be to make the best game possible. And that doesn't mean that every single person on the team is going to make good decisions. It means that when they make a bad decision, the rest of the team needs to be able to speak up about that. And I think that juniors are probably the least likely to do that because they feel vulnerable about their job position, right? And they may not know. They may say, oh, that seems like it's wrong, but I don't want to be wrong because then that makes me seem like I'm not getting better at my job. Obviously, that's not the case, right? But you need to foster a culture in your company that accepts that confrontation, accepts that people can be wrong, and that's okay. That's part of making the game better. And that's really hard to do. That is hard to do, but you can suss that out when you're hiring people of whether or not they are that kind of person who, when something is wrong, they'd rather just put their nose to the keyboard and keep working and not cause a fluff. But I think it comes from top down. You need to have managers, you need to have the CEO, you need to have people who are like, okay, let's find a way to fix it. Let's have the conversation. You think the game's going in the wrong direction. Who else feels that way? 1, 2, okay, the rest of the team, let's talk this out. Clearly something's wrong. We need to fix it right away so that we can course correct and make the best game we can. So you think that people that cause a fluff is better or people that don't is better? I think that people that... I mean, there's ways, right? So when I say that these are people who will say that, the cake is a cake and it's not a bush, right? They just say it is the way it is. Generally, doing that is going to be better. But there are diplomatic ways to do that without telling somebody that, hey, your idea is shit, right? Because that's toxic. You could say, I think that that's a good start, but maybe that's not going to achieve the goals that we want for the player. Something of that nature, right? So there are diplomatic ways to be that kind of person. Being too blunt, I mean, you can be blunt without being mean. Saying that looks like shit versus I'm not a big fan of how that looks has a very different weight to it, at least in English. I would just say it's a good start if it leads in the wrong direction because the conversation itself is a good start. And I was just trying to think of like a case of, how about we make the player be able to double jump? Okay, that's a good start. The issue is that the player mobility doesn't seem great. I'm not sure if double jumping is the right way, but maybe we can make some power up that allows you to double your jump height or something. Like, it's just like, start the conversation rolling. I'm not really a fan of how shit that looks. Yeah, perfect. You got it. So being blunt is bad or being blunt is good? Being blunt is good, but there are just different ways to say things that I think will not make you seem like an asshole. Not liking something is that's not what makes you an asshole. Being mean is what makes you an asshole, right? Maybe that's a better way to word it. And I don't want to hire somebody on my team who is mean. I want to hire somebody who is honest. What if you still come off as an asshole either way? I think the way that you come off is going to be both dependent on the way that you say it and the way that the person interprets it. And you can't have a 100% perfect conversation, right? Especially if you're like online. When you say something, it's like, I'm not really a fan of how that looks. And you read that and you're like, that's really passive aggressive. Even though in real life, the person might just say, I'm not really a fan of how that looks, right? And there's no passive aggressiveness to that. There's no aggressiveness to it. You're just stating that you're not a big fan of it. That's where you need to like have a call, fix the marriage, turn on webcams, something like that. Before I refer myself always as being the asshole, but just in the way of being honest and not mean. Yeah, I mean, I kind of do that too, just because it's kind of funny, but really it just depends on how you say it, and I think that there is a time to be blunt where you're not accusing somebody, where you can say, look, we're going to have a problem if we release this in this state. And you're just stating that this system with its bugs is not great. And it's like, okay, well, some of the bugs might be art related, some of them might be design related, some of them might be programming related, and you're just stating in general that this system is shitty and it isn't working well. And I don't feel like anybody's going to feel like you're pointing your finger at them. So I wouldn't finger point. I would just, hire people that are able to take responsibility, so that when you say, yeah, this system just doesn't feel good from a design perspective, they say, okay, let's have a call about that. Let's fix that. And let's see if we can find a way to resolve it. And if anybody has ideas or want to join me on that call, you're all open to join me on that. That's somebody taking responsibility for it being in a bad state and not saying, well, I did the best job that I could. That's not taking responsibility. What if someone says there's no way to tiptoe around it, and no matter how much sugar you put to coat the wound with, or shit they say, it still take it the wrong way? Yeah, I think that sometimes, you need to, you can sugarcoat your shit. You can sugarcoat. You can take a pile of steaming shit and you can sprinkle sugar on top of it. Now, it's not going to change the fact that it's shit, but you can say, look, you're not going to like what I have to say, but I just don't think that this is the direction we need to move in. Maybe the way that I phrased it to you as the designer asking you to make it this way, maybe I worded it wrong. So let's sit down, let's try to redesign it and figure out if we can meet these goals or these metrics in a different way. Make it sound easy, like the team just inherited a project and now needs to work together to improve it. But usually things got the way they are slowly. Yes, people are emotionally invested in the current way. Yes, 100%. No, you're right. That's why I'm saying that it's important during the hiring process to hire people based on their attitude as well as their skills, and not just their skills. That if you hire a team that is looking to be adults and mature and accept that people make mistakes, you are more likely than not going to preemptively resolve any issues that might occur by simply saying, okay, let's try to fix it together. What if that person still doesn't agree? Sometimes I feel like the sugarcoating doesn't necessarily work all the time. I mean, escalate it to the creative director, and that person is going to have the final say. Sometimes you may not agree. Sometimes the team may not agree. Then it comes down to the one person who has the final say. And whether the team likes it or not, that's what they're going to go with. Somebody has to have the final word on it. But I think, too, even if two people can't agree of who's right, they don't need to escalate it to be a personal problem. It can be like, okay, Mr. John over there, I disagree with you on this. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the players say. And John, if he's mature enough, he'll say, yeah, we'll just, I might be right, I might be wrong. Who cares? If one of us is wrong, and the players are happy with it, we'll just say, oh, I was wrong about that. I think being diplomatic is always the solution. I think that there are diplomatic ways to be blunt. I 100% think that there are diplomatic ways to be blunt. You don't need to be mean about it. And if somebody on your team can't see something for what it is objectively, even when their emotions might be a little bit tied to it, right? Because I've designed things poorly. That happens, and I'm emotionally invested in it, and it's like, okay, well, you know what, it's shit. It feels really bad, makes me feel bad, but I also need to say, okay, it's not fun. That's the core. My responsibility is making something fun. But if you turn into Ben Shapiro, I don't think Ben Shapiro is going to have any interest in making a game. I think he might say that they're leading to people having addictions to porn or something. I don't know, or being violent. Who knows, whatever. Probably not the greatest person to hire for your team. It doesn't matter how much of an asshole the individual is. If the asshole cannot play as part of the team, you should not hire that person. It does not matter if they are levels of ability on the same level as Hideo Kojima. If they cannot be a team player, you should not hire them, because they will rip your team apart from the inside. Do not do it. It is very easy to hire somebody with high skill. It is hard to hire somebody with high skill who can be a good team player. And you should hire somebody who's a good team player because skills can be learned. Attitude is really hard to reform. That's what I would say.
But once you attack, I'm done. I'm usually done listening. But
I agree.
I'm usually done even reading. There's enough people who've done enough attacks that I don't really read any of their comments anymore. So they may be making brilliant comments now, but I see the
That's
name,
true. Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't feel like wading through another attack today.
Yeah.
So I just skip it. I don't think people realize that a lot of people do this online. So once you get known as being the person who just yells all the time, your audience is of people who are engrossed are reduced. I know people will say
it's actually one of the reasons why I stopped doing Kickstarter reviews. You know, it's great when you're doing Kickstarter reviews to find the cool games. The problem is that 99% of Kickstarter games are not that cool, and they never receive the funding they will. And having to look at them is soul wrenching. And I try to be honest. You know, I try to say, look, this game won't receive its funding. It's not good enough. And you know, having to say just be negative all the time about those games, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good feeling, and I don't think it was a good result. Maybe there's some education to pull from that, but it wasn't. It was a net negative on the channel, I think, and it was a net negative on me.
Say, oh no, rage and hate videos are all the rage. But yeah, you're right. That'll give you clicks and stuff. But I'm not here for clicks. I kind of want people to understand how game development works. And just calling everybody who plays games and makes games stupid isn't going to give you much insight in how games are made.
I agree.
So,
negativity breeds negativity. It does, yeah. And you know, I also just I don't want to watch. It's the same reason I don't follow people on Twitter who are just constantly negative. I don't mind, you know, saying things that I don't like about a game like Dragon Age Veilguard. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to talk about the game anymore. I want to talk about games that are good. You know, Stalker 2 just came out. Stalker 2 was fun. I liked it. I wanted to talk about what I liked about that game because that was a highlight of the year for me, was playing that game finally. After so many years, it finally came out.
What's my point of all this? There's a big difference between saying you don't like something and saying to someone, you're stupid for liking it. And that's pretty much all I'm saying. Just try to be a little more reflective in your comments. Try to be better at leaving some of those comments. Try to get good at your comments.
Tim.
Yeah, I see what I did there. Anyway, that's all I'm trying to say. So, thanks.
Here's why get good is bad. And then at the end, get good. I like that, though. That was a good video from Tim. If you guys like that, here's the link. Please, please, please sub to Tim. He has so many of these amazing videos. Talk about how you especially like that one room in Stalker 2. I won't talk about that room. Look, Stalker 2 was amazing, except for one room, which we don't talk about. That room does not exist. I accidentally glitched into that room or something because I'm sure it was unfinished and unpolished and unbalanced. It wasn't real. That was just fake. It was fake news, the room. Okay, yeah, guys, if you like that video, subscribe to Tim Cain. That was a good one. You know, negativity is... It just all piles into how you criticize and how you allow others to play a game. Somebody else liking a game doesn't mean that you've been hurt from it. And, you know, somebody else hating on a game doesn't mean that you should feel any lesser for liking it. Okay? Yes, we like to be part of the group, and if most of the group is over here hating the game, it kind of feels lonely, and, you know, you might be attacked for liking the game. Shut it out. It's not important. Sometimes you like things that other people don't like. That's just how it is. All right. Thank you so much for watching that one. If you're watching on YouTube, I will catch you later. And if you're watching on Twitch, stick around because I might watch one more. Maybe. Bye-bye, YouTube.